Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome everyone to episode 295 of Born to Be Wild, a wild Hearthstone podcast where we have fun, hanging with friends, talking about the wild formats of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the wild community. It's great to be back on a wonderful Friday evening here in beautiful British Columbia. I am joined by my fellow host, Schmoopydady! And announcing the return of the lore master, Goliath the Dwarf.
Hey, it is good to be back as always. A new expansion, a new set of stories to talk about. Always here for it.
Awesome. Great to have you back. Excited for it, Goliath. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/borntobewildhs, and the video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. However you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes. You.
Content plug. Schmoopydady, whoop. Come, wang dang. Schmoopydady. Before we get to the main topic of the show tonight, I'd like to say a quick thank you to the patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and comment on this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching live on Twitch, you got some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to the channel. This is free if you use Amazon Prime. And finally, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 per month. We have some channels in the Discord that are unlocked by subscribing to the Patreon. Where you can see the show coming together each week. Check it out. If you'd like to interact with us personally, please join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends from all across the world talking about wild Hearthstone. Links to all this stuff and more, including our merch, can be found on our website, which is www.borntobewildhs.com. Hydra, damn you for that intro. And how was your week?
It's a song, by the way, and it fits so well.
Did it fit so well? I had like no sense of tempo or cadence whatsoever. I
look it up.
This thing and said, "What has he done to me?" I guess I gotta try.
Look it up. Just replace the Schmoopydady with shoop diddy, and look up those lyrics. And
all right, I'll try. Anyway, what was your week like? Torturer.
So Goliath may not have realized this. I guess you were listening. You were live last episode watching. I had talked about how I've, like 25 years later, I'm actually reading the Harry Potter books, because I never did. And I am now on the 6th one. I finished the 5th one after last week's episode, and I'm on the 6th one now. And I guess all thumbs up. I had mentioned last week I'm enjoying them more than I thought I was going to. And so far, that is exactly still the case. The 6th book is great so far. I guess I'll get my final review at the end. But yeah, it's Half-Blood Prince, and it's going pretty sweet. I'm enjoying it much more than I thought I was going to. Now, Hearthstone-wise, so last week on the show, I said that I was going to be prioritizing achievement hunting, like just for the fun of it. And I basically got addicted to it, I'm going to say.
Oh boy.
And it's embarrassing to admit. So I wrote down in the show notes one specifically, the Fistful of Corpses achievement. It's not that hard. It's like do 20 damage with one fist. It's not the end of the world. Like, it's not hard really to do, but like any deck that you're running corpses in, you're often using the corpses, right? And so like saving up 20 is kind of hard when you're using them. So I ditched every single card that actually utilizes corpses, and I just filled the deck full of like 1 mana cost cards, and then had Fist, and I had like no end game basically in this deck. It was just
No.
like a Renethal deck.
And winning decks are often not the same thing.
Yeah. So I changed it to like a low curve because I looked at like Zeddy has a guide on how to complete the Badlands achievements, right? And so I took his deck that he was using, but it was like also kind of designed to win. Like it had like an end game, like Colossals, and there's like 3 or 4 legendaries in it. I'm like, yeah, it's not like I'm gonna ditch all this. I'm gonna ditch the giants. Like I'm not using them. When am I getting to those?
We're gonna run Wand Maker so that like maybe we get another copy of Fistful of Corpses in case we scuff somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous. But anyways, it took me way too long. I think I played that deck for like it was like 15 games or something before I actually did it. Like it was bad. It was pretty bad. Like you'd think that you could pull that off in like 2 to 3 games maybe, but there was one time, it was so funny. So Mrs. Hydra was out here talking to me, and I had it like in hand. And wife more important than video game. Hydra understand. I had to ignore my computer to speak with her, and I missed the turn, and my opponent conceded. And I was like, no! Like I'm like, that was my one time that I finally had it. And yeah. And smart husband, not blame wife, only in mind.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. And then it took another like 3 games after that or something. I gave up that day and I went to do it the next day. You know how that always works? How like,
oh yeah,
the next day suddenly you just do it like first or second try. Anyway, I did that. Then I was targeting a bunch of paladin ones. Basically what I did is I looked up like, what are the easiest ones I can knock off first from like the Google AI, and it gave me like a list of what I can, start to clear first. And then I was like, which ones can I clear at the same time across all these expansions by building a deck where I can, and it's smart that way. And it was like kind of helping me like do a few, like I almost had, like there was a prismatic beam one that I was like almost completed, and so I like did that one real quick. I just threw prismatic beam into a deck where I was doing something else. And anyway, I just
fair amount of these are just very grindy.
Some of them are just grindy. Yeah,
times it's like I've been working on the one where you play all those silver hand paladins that you get with that. I forget the name of the card right now. It came out in the last mini set. But basically, it's like, you get 2 copies of that spell in hand. Lucky if you draw one or both of them in the game, and then play all of those for per that it gets you. And like, you just have to play a lot of games where you're playing Paladin in order to get that.
Yeah. Anyway, you know what? So yesterday, I didn't go to work yesterday or the day before. Well, because yesterday, the day before was Canada Day. And then yesterday was just like a random day that I had off. All I did, so I was supposed to do 2 things. I had 2 things I needed to do. And one was prepare for the lore episode. And the other one was edit last week's episode. And I did neither of those 2 things. I just played Hearthstone for like 12 hours each day. That's like all I did is I just played like all day long. So I finished moving recently. I've been working so hard. I didn't take any time off of work when we were moving to our new house. I was been only doing evenings and weekends, and I've been exhausted. And so I had the last 2 days off where we were done. We were completely done. And so I sat on my butt and I just played Hearthstone, and it was fun. And it was fun playing stuff that like, so like Standard comes out with all these types of, different experimental archetypes and stuff like that, they never really, they don't always land. And so you're playing these decks that you never actually played, because normally we play kind of competitively unless you're Schmoopydady and have people send mean decks to you.
True.
Like, so it was just cool. It's just cool to do things that I haven't, playing cards that I own, but never played because I had no reason to, because they kind of stink, but they're fun. But yeah, so it's been a blast. I'm just gonna keep doing it because I played more Hearthstone in the last 2 days than I have in like the last month, easily. And so yeah, it's good. I'm happy. Schmoopy Daddy, how's your week?
Sure. So we kicked off the week with like a vacation. We're not far from a resort called Kalahari, so which is like it's supposed to sort of like replicate like a an African watering hole and sort of like fit themes like that. And it's not too far away from us. And my wife booked it for like I think she booked it in the winter when prices were lower. So
Nice.
we like to go. The kids enjoy themselves. There's a giant water park in there. So we're hanging out at the water park. We did some ropes courses. We generally had a good time as a family until we had to go, and then like the kids were melting because they're trying to run on like French fries and yogurt. We're like, no guys, you got to eat real food. And like, yay, whatever, we got this, we got this. They did not have it. They did not have it. And so the ride home was a little bit treacherous. But we got there. Everybody's still alive, shockingly. And it was just a ton of fun. And it it was like a nice way to sort of like kick off officially summer vacation, since last week was my um, last day at work.
Yay.
Yay. We got back from that, and on Wednesday was the first of the month, and so I started as a casual climb to legend, attempting to be, not keeping track of record, playing mostly on mobile, and then it came time to stream, and I was at like D5, no stars. My trip to D5 was really, really, really like easy because my MMR last month was so bad. I don't know what it was about the viewer decks or just me playing. I don't the meta. I don't know. I think I kept trying to do anything but meta,
Maybe I'll
and
have crappy
was
MMR going forward.
maybe yeah
With
probably.
the
You'll
achievements.
get dude. I was like I kid you not, like to start my month I might have gone like 14-0. And like my first three matches were like suspected boar hunter, which is like an okay deck, but it's not like it's a noob killer. Like like you do it on like a Mark Makes video, and everybody's like tier one. This thing's OP, and then like you get it up against like real decks, and it doesn't have time or space to do what it needs to do. But like it's one of those sort of decks that is spoken with reverence across Reddit for its prowess at the lower ranks.
I
So it
love the
was
way
like
you worded that so
yeah,
much.
it's cloaked in mystery. Oh, if only you play it optimally. You can like yeah, you can high roll with it, but it's not as good as like it might be the best hunter deck right now, but that's not saying much. Um, so it was like Boar Hunter, Westline Hunter that I'm 90% sure was still running Baku with a 4 mana
Oh,
Tolvir, so that did not work out great for them. And then another Boar Hunter. So I basically had like three
oh,
free wins for XL Shadow Priest, all smushed together in a nice, tasty sandwich to start my climb. I did not see a discard Warlock
no.
until like Diamond 6.
I didn't see any yet.
Maybe post Diamond. It might have been like Diamond 4. Like I had like this win streak. I skipped Diamond 5. I'm sitting at Diamond 4. I'm like, yes, we're here. Maybe we can get a quick legend before we stream. No, okay. And then so I like was trying a bunch of different things. Eventually, I landed on stream with Lost City Priest, Reach Equilibrium, the newest build. I've hated this deck forever. Mostly because it was like trying to be Big Priest, but like stop trying to be Big Priest in 2026. It's just not it like even Big Shaman is very beatable now, and Big Priest is just So I used to make fun of the deck because it would like make this big board on like turn 6 or 7, and then it would just sort of sit there, and then Reno Lone Ranger would come down and delete it, and then the person would throw their keyboard at the computer. No, it's a really good deck. It's a really good deck. It's not a really good deck. But this version's good. This version, I've been calling it White Miracle Rogue because you are basically building up. You play your quest turn 1. You forge Creation Protocol on turn 2. You go get 2 Priestess Felicias on turn 3. Turn 4 is question mark. Turn 5 is you will basically vomit every card from your hand onto the board and also complete your quest and also get your quest reward down. And just do that and rinse repeat and do that and rinse repeat, and it farms discard warlock, and that's what I basically did to hit day 1 legend. I went 19-4 from literally I think like D5 no stars. I was pretty tilted. But we got past it. That was fine.
Nice.
No, it was I think it was D4. I got up to D4 and I was just like, enough's enough. I'm trying QB Priest. And also played a bunch of Brawl. I know
Cool.
Hydra has not gotten to the Brawl yet. Goliath, have you played any Brawl?
So I only just got a decent amount of cards from the new expansion, thanks
Sure.
to you actually, and the giveaway. Thank you for that.
Oh.
So I'm still trying to figure out what to try to because it's from any class,
Yes.
and I haven't gotten to play with these before like you guys have. So I'm trying to figure out what's good with the ones that I have and the legendaries that I have. I want to do it, but I don't dare do it until I have at least some semblance of what I'm doing. So maybe I'll learn from your story here.
I feel
I was
that.
gonna say the plan was like we're not gonna do a new section. The lore section is always like plenty of content all on its own, and so I was gonna be remiss if we didn't talk about the brawl at all on the podcast. So basically, best card in standard is one of the best cards in brawl in like Vanessa. Especially if you're free to play, it's a lot of people are just sort of taking whatever commons they have, slapping them in a deck, slapping Vanessa in the deck, mulliganing for Vanessa, prepare, let's see what I get. That's basically what I'm doing on EU, to try and get the packs I can get. I almost did that on Asia, except Asia I high rolled and opened Beatrix. She is the Paladin legendary, who's the
I did
who
get
we'll
her.
talk about. Yeah, we'll talk about later. Okay, perfect. So like pure Paladin is one of the better things you can do if you're not doing Vanessa. You cut Vanessa. There's the 3-mana taunt that replicates itself. Like summons 2 copies if you have no other neutral cards in your deck. That's one of the best cards in the brawl. In Beatrix, you can stash away the Scarlet Bruisers, who are 2/2 death rattles. When they die, give you a random Paladin card that's discounted. The Paladin card they give you can be from any standard Paladin card, not just like the limited pool. So you get some really like nutty cards out of nowhere that's just like why do I have this? Okay, sure. That break things open. And so like on my main profile, I am 18-1 in the brawl. I've done 3 runs.
Whoa.
I've hit 6 wins on all
Whoa.
of them. Basically using this like call to arms style Beatrix deck.
You bully.
And if you have all the cards, you're doing great.
That's awesome.
On my not free to play accounts, I am not doing so hot. I am a solid 4-4 across both accounts, though.
Hey, it could be worse.
The Asia run that I'm counting a loss for, I basically added the Scarlet Bruiser, which requires you're getting that Paladin card only if there's no neutrals in your deck. And that's the funny thing about how they've structured the 2 pure Paladin requirement cards in this brawl in this expansion is as it says, as long as there's no neutral cards. So you can have other class cards in your deck. Yes, as long as there's no neutral cards. So I did not realize that tag was there, and so when my first Scarlet Bruiser died and then my second Scarlet Bruiser died, I was going to report a bug, and then I realized it wasn't a bug. I was just stupid. So I'm four and
Stupid
four.
daddy.
Stupid daddy. Yeah. So I'm 4 and 4 across my non like pay to win um, style accounts, and I will say it is the least free to play friendly version of the brawl they've done so far. I think adding the access to all commons for the set is great. Access to the free legendary, awesome. I have a deck, I can do things, but the really powerful strategies look like they revolve around legendaries that you end up packing, and so the whales are definitely
Prevail.
ruling things. The one card that they ended up banning was this monkey from Rogue that would sit in your hand, and every turn that it sat in your hand, it would tick up an instance of 2 damage that could hit any enemy. And so, like, you had some decks that were basically revolving around, or like, all right, the monkey's going to sit here for a while, and then start dropping those down, and it was just crazy from hand damage. They banned it because they're just like, no, this is too
I got
much.
that notification about the ban, and I was very confused because I didn't know anything about the cards. So
Yeah, no, it's pretty like I don't know if it's going to end up getting nerfed in standard. Rogue's kind of in a tough spot. Well, no, it's not. I should shut up. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be any. I don't know if it's going to be any good in standard. It seems to take a lot of time. But the thing is, um, playing the brawl, there are a lot of people who are treating the brawl like it's ladder and are going face instead of trading. And really, the brawl feels to me more like it's arena, especially when it's jank on jank and it's like 2 free to play players. Because it's like if I get ahead on board and don't let you get back on, I will win in the brawl. There's no efficient clears. It's like it's a very like primordial form of Hearthstone. Um,
And don't forget, your first one is free.
And your first one is free, so you should do it. Absolutely. Yeah, hop in, do your best. Commons and Vanessa go. Yeah, depart regardless of what you've opened. But but yeah, no, like some of the cards feel really, really good, and some of the cards feel really like, man, I don't know if this is going to do the same thing when it's not opened up to all class cards. Chef, the card that I am much maligning so much. I'm like, why did they print this card? It's not good. It's the one that starts in your deck, and then as long as nothing costs more than 3 in your deck at any time, ramps straight up to 10 mana at like turn 6, right? It's broken. It's broken in the brawl because you can run all other payoffs from a lot of other different sources and other classes, whereas in Druid, that's not so much going to be the case in Standard. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see how these cards that look really good in the brawl, does that end up translating to ladder? I don't know. A lot of people don't have access to these cards. That's also kind of a problem. I think the rewards for like what the resources you put in for the resources you get out are like pretty decent. Like at at like 2 or 3 wins, you're getting 300 gold worth of value. Um, it's just like I don't know. I don't know if they've necessarily hit it big with like the perfect format for the brawl. People didn't like previous formats because you could run no new cards and just farm packs. People don't like this version because everybody's running new cards, but it feels a little samey because everybody's kind of running the same cards.
Right.
I'm glad they tried it. I don't know if this is the way they should do it going forward. This doesn't feel like a home run concept, so I hope they continue to tweak it at the edges. But these are difficult. These are difficult things that they have to kind of figure
they're
out,
running
especially from a
experiments,
game
and to get more
design
data
perspective.
they can use to try to improve it next time.
Like the
100%,
sentiment was, I think the feedback they got was, well, we want people to use the new cards, and so I think they came up with the best possible concept to do that, but at the same time, it fails in some aspects, especially if you don't pre-order.
Yeah.
So like I don't, I think this definitely feels like this brawl they lean more towards the pre-orders, but you know, it is a business. So anyway, that's my brawl update. I've spoken a lot on the topic already. Goliath, how was your week?
Well, I would like to start with the disclaimer that right now, as of this recording, it is the day right before Independence Day. There are fireworks that are shooting right outside. I don't know if the audio will catch any of that up. If I look a little
I hope
distracted
so.
and glance towards the window a lot, that is the reason, because I'm hearing lots of booms. Uh, but regarding more of what I've been up to recently, I have been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. And by
Nice.
a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, I mean that I've had entire days where I intended to be productive, that I wasn't working, disappear
Mm-hmm.
because I'm obsessed with creating characters. And I'm on my
Ooh.
fourth run now of the game,
Wow.
and I'm not one of those people. There's lots of people who they play through a few acts and then they stop before finishing the game because they want to make a new character. No, I do full runs. I want to see the story conclude in
Oh,
various different ways. Once I finish it, I immediately launch a new one with a new character. It's getting pretty bad at this point, and I think after this fourth run, I'm going to have to force myself to uninstall the game to give myself a break. Um, I'm currently attempting to get the achievements for doing the evil runs, which is hard for me to do a lot of the times. You know how they used to say when we were kids that video games make you violent? Meanwhile, I can't bring myself to be mean to any of the NPCs.
right.
I actually find it easier to be evil than rude and mean in these sorts of
I
games.
I never pick the mean way in a game because not because like maybe I'm not mean. I don't think I'm mean, but I usually pick the nice way because it makes your play experience easier. Usually,
Yeah, I want people to like me.
yeah.
Um, and so the way that I get myself to do this is by I just create a character that most that I can disassociate myself with. You know how sometimes you create characters that are like your self insert, and I do that a lot of times for my first blind run. My first character was literally a dwarf named Goliath. Uh, I do my best to just create the opposite of me as possible. So I'm like, it's not me, it's the character, which means, one of the ways to do that is invert the gender. So I tend to have a lot of evil ladies in the various games that I
Oh,
play
and
because
are
it's one of
they?
the best ways to be like, that's not me.
That's hilarious.
Um,
And you should make them
uh,
giants instead of dwarfs, which would be funny if that was
Of
possible.
course.
I did make it the largest body size possible.
Nice.
Unfortunately, giants are not playable in that game. But aside from that, I am playing Hearthstone. Even though I don't climb things quite the same as a lot of you guys, I do play at least a little bit every day. Keeps the doctor away or something, I'm sure. And I actually have managed to get up to legend for the past 3 months.
Nice.
Every single time. I keep trying different ones, but I always go back to discard Warlock deck that Schmoopy shared a few months ago, and it's the only thing that gets me up there. But hey, Warlock's my favorite class. I'm not really complaining. I have motivation now because, like, not only do I get more free things when I hit the legend rank at the start of each month, but now they've introduced that achievement that gives a special card back if you hit it 5 times in this year, and now I've gotten 3 out of the 5.
Oh.
The things that you earn are even more valuable to me than things that you buy because it represents something you accomplished. Um, that so I'm going to try to get for the next couple months to get at least 2 more legend ranks. Maybe it'll still be discard lock. Maybe the meta will have completely shifted so much by then that it'll have to be something entirely different.
Well, get
I
them in
don't know.
now while your deck is still good.
I was gonna say strike while the iron is hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably be very dependent on the Born to Be Wild community to provide things to help me keep getting up to those ranks. Um, Outside of games, I have developed a real strong interest in the American National Park system. I went to my first national park back around the start of May, so going on about 2 months ago as of this recording, and I visited the Indiana Dunes, which is one of the newer national parks in America. And I kind of got hooked on the idea of visiting all of them in my lifetime. And then
Oh.
there's all other places in the national park system that are not parks themselves, but they are like national trails or lake shores or monuments or something. It'd be ridiculous to try to visit every single one of those. But some of them are closer to me, more within a day trip drive than most of the parks would be, which you have to take, full vacations on to go visit and everything.
Sure, yeah.
So, it this has become something that appeals to like three different parts of me. I love exploring new places. I love photographing new and beautiful things, and I am a bit of an obsessive collector of souvenirs. So you can see I have like bulletin boards behind me. I like collecting pins and stuff for them. I get the pin, I get the fridge magnets, I get the hat and the shirt. And
Nice.
now I understand there's like emblems you can get on hiking sticks. And yeah, I'm kind of obsessive about all that. And so it's kind of like a real life achievement system for me. It's a game that I want to play and things that I want to collect. And so I'm looking at a couple places. Once the weather, we've had just the worst spell for this past month of alternating between torrential rainstorms and super hot and muggy Midwest weather.
Mm.
Coming from Iowa, by the way, for those of you who don't know who are listening. So it hasn't been great for going out and visiting places. I'm really hoping that like, if I have to wait until September, so be it. But I want to get out and explore some new trails.
Those parks that you said, how many are there? You said you want to try to get to them all in your lifetime. How many are there?
Yeah,
Do you
I
know?
can't remember off the top of my head. Let me have a quick look. There are 63 officially designated national parks in the United States. The National Park Service manages a total of 433 units across the country, including monuments, battlefields, historical sites, and seashores. So I'm not going for visiting every single one of those things, but I would like to be able to hit all of those
The
parks and
63 parks? It's possible.
within a lifetime. I mean, I'm only 30 right now, presuming that I don't meet with some horrible accidents, then I should
If you
have a decent
lived
amount ahead of
till 93, you could do one per year.
me. And yeah, the longer I stick with my job, the more weeks of vacation I'll
Hey,
get per year. So,
Perfect.
my grandmother is 93 and she's chilling.
yeah, we'll see how things go. But yeah, it's something real fun. I like to try to keep a lot of good balance in my life. I have things that I love doing on the screen, but I want to, do stuff outside of that as well. Uh, One of those is working with my hands, and I mentioned the last time I was here that I had started a candle company.
Yeah.
Well, strictly speaking, it's an LLC that exists solely so that I can try to sell some of my stuff that I like making at local craft fairs and everything, because you need insurance as a business to do that. Because turns
Of course.
out if you sell someone something that's flammable and they get really stupid and burn their house down with it, you need protection. Otherwise, they'll take everything away from you. So it's a really complicated process to navigate because the internet keeps trying to, like, the algorithm keeps trying to launch advertisements at me of get this service, get that service. And I know that those are probably the ones that I don't want because, they're trying to trick new people, scare them, show them an easy way or something. So I'm still working on navigating all that. But I do have a friend online who's helping me design logos, and we're getting some pretty fun designs that we're cooking with here. Nothing's final yet, but we've got some great ideas of like a lion that's made out of flames in the mane and melting wax down at the bottom, and it's something that's I really want to get everything going by fall if at all possible. I've been making so many pumpkin candles. Like I got like a 200 glass pumpkin shaped jars from my workplace when they went on 90% off. And I've spent like hundreds of dollars on wax and fragrance and dyes and everything to fill them all up. It's fun. I hope that people like them enough that I can at least make some of that money back in the fall. But
I'm sure you will.
we'll see how things go. It's basically meant to be more of a self-sustaining hobby than a legitimate, this is how I'm going to get rich or something.
I mean, it's not like they're gonna go bad, so you've got a lifetime to sell them to get your money back.
That's fair. I also
They're
live in
canceling
an
Halloween.
apartment building with not the most amount of storage space. Honestly, this is the key thing that's making me want to upgrade from apartment to owning my own house within the next few years if possible, just so I can have a dedicated crafting room and a dedicated storage closet for all the hobbies that go out of control. Because and this probably isn't going to be the only thing. My general rate at this point is for every year I work at a craft store, I pick up a new hobby. So I don't know where things are going to go out of
That
control.
would be difficult, I guess. Hey, like if my wife worked at a craft store, my goodness, because craft stores are her favorite stores.
Yep. Wives are the most common people for me to check out at my work. So.
Oh, don't tell their husbands. You're
Oh
checking them
no!
out.
They frequently tell me about how they're going to make sure their husband never finds out that they spent his money on all of these things. Be like, no, I didn't just buy this. This isn't new. I've had this been in the attic. You know, they
Oh
pay
yeah,
in
yeah.
cash so that there's no paper trail, and yeah, no, it's
How many sets of crochet hooks and knitting needles and
yeah,
skeins
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, the one I picked up aside from the candle making was dusting off my old childhood coin collecting hobby because I collected all the American state quarters when they were coming out when I was a kid, and they've come out with a lot more since then. So I just got all the coin collecting books, and every time I get change, I just sift through everything and see if there's something new to put in one of the collection books. So that's
Nice.
at least not to the intensity of the candle stuff is, but you never know what else could be. I have no idea what's next.
Right on. Well, speaking of what is next, we're skipping the news, like Schmoopydady said, but let's
We
jump.
skipped the news. The news was perfectly fine. We got other stuff to do.
Um, let's hop into Escape from Violet Hold lore. Goliath the Dwarf, please take us away.
All right. So, in order to talk about Violet Hold, we first have to talk about the city that it is based in and the people who are running it, which means we're going to talk about Dalaran. Uh, we started doing these lore episodes after Dalaran Heist came out, so we never really had an opportunity to go over all that. So this is our little catch-up moment here for all that. Everybody gets to know about Dalaran. So, for once, we are not starting a lore episode, but we're going back all the way to the dawn of time, and everything goes back to old gods and everything.
Oh man.
I know it is kind of fun, but no, this one we only go back as far as the first ever as the dawn of humanity.
Only that far back. Okay.
Yes. So, in a region that on a modern map in World of Warcraft is known as the Eastern Kingdoms, this is where the human race first developed. They were actually initially essentially the runt children of giants who basically their families had to flee because the Vicruel, actually, you've seen them on Hearthstone cards. They were basically being cast out for being small and puny and weak, and they wanted to be execute them. But the moms are like, no, you're not going to kill our kids. And they just had this big exodus into what these days is called the Eastern Kingdoms. And these smaller versions of giants became humans. And this is the racial origin within the World of Warcraft. So The very first human empire was called the Arthurian Empire, and it covered basically every place that humans exist or have a city within Azeroth to the modern day. Eventually, this was an empire that broke apart, kind of one of those, you have your leader who's big at unifying people, but as soon as that leader dies, things just kind of break apart eventually. Happens a lot in real life history, like Attila the Hun or something, for example. And
Genghis Khan, yeah.
Yep, a lot of those types. And so Dalaran was an independent city-state that was just one of those little pieces of land that used to be part of the Arthurian Empire. Um, the thing that made it unique was that it just so happened to be a lot more tolerant of magic, and wizards just kind of flocked to there because the kind of earlier days of humanity, they had recently learned magic from elves. They didn't have magic before that. They really needed it in this massive war against trolls that they had in their early days. But it's a lot of people don't really know about magic, and so it's kind of a bit suspicious to a lot of folks. So Dalaran ends up becoming this haven where all these mages can go and study and not have to worry about people being suspicious or cracking down on their activities here. The mages actually are really good because they have powerful magic of protecting all the non-magic users in Dalaran, and so it becomes what is described on Wowpedia as a decadent, extravagant paradise. So, attracts a fair amount of people. It eventually became what is described as a magocracy. The government is entirely ruled by wizards. It is the core identity of the entire city. It's independent. It's beholden to no other kingdom or king or anything like that. Builds a good friendship with Silvermoon of the Blood Elves, and because they're all about magic, they're the race that taught humans magic in the first place. So they have kind of a exchange program stuff actually over the centuries. A lot of Silvermoon people, even royals, will go and live and sometimes even help to govern Dalaran for periods of time there. Um, However, none of this stuff lasts for absolutely ever, and
Uh-oh.
eventually it did get destroyed. Um, Destroyed within the game of Warcraft 3, as anyone who has played that will probably remember. The demon Archimond gets summoned as a whole thing where the Lich King, who at this point is a pawn of the Burning Legion, but is also kind of secretly rebelling against masters. This is part of the whole big story with Arthas and Kel'Thuzad and stuff that we're not going to rehash entirely here because we've talked about that in other episodes if anyone wants to go back and listen to them. But yeah, it's a big part, and as soon as Archimond is summoned, he just completely decimates all of Dalaran as a city, just destroys the entire thing. Um, and a very cinematic way. But yeah, it's not great. And for this reason, when World of Warcraft, the game, came out, there isn't really a Dalaran around. What they have is, if you go to that region in the game, is just well, at least way back then, is a big impervious energy shield that it's very opaque, so you can't see what's in it. Game wise, there literally is nothing in it, but lore wise, it's like this is being erected in order to protect the rebuilding. Because this is essentially a large process that takes quite a while under an archmage named Ronan, who's taken over after the previous Archmage was, kind of killed when the entire city was destroyed. We'll talk more about each of the Archmages or Grand Maguses, as they're officially known, a little bit later. They've had four so far within the course of the story.
Okay.
But for now, this guy is just working on building everything up as much as he can. Uh, then they decide to make the city fly because they're all magic. And it just so happens that now we have reached the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, where, the Scourge Army, all the undead are marching all over Azeroth, and the Horde and Alliance and any other relevant factions are like, we have to go and stop this at its source. We have to go to Northrend, get a Lich King. And so the city of Dalaran itself is entirely teleported to be a floating city above Northrend that serves as a base of operations for these coordinated attacks. However, they run into a little bit of a problem because the Lich King isn't the only one who's having some issues at the moment. The blue dragon aspect, Malagos, has gone a little crazy, and he has started what is called the Nexus War. Basically, he, as the guardian of all arcane magic in the world, that is his job as blue dragon aspect. That's literally what he was created and empowered to do. He's come to the conclusion that mortals cannot be trusted to use magic wisely. He has a bit of a point. A lot of evil people have used magic to cause some big problems up to this point in the story. But his solution is that he's going to strip the magical powers away from all mortal mages, and redirect every ley line. Ley lines, which coincidentally just so happened to be a mechanic that was introduced in the last mini set for the mages. Ley lines are basically like rivers of magic that flow throughout the world, in places where maybe some ley lines intersect, or there's just like a really powerful spot on one. Those are places where mages can tap extra strong sources of power so they can cast more powerful spells and all that sort of thing. Malagos is attempting to redirect every single one of these to where he lives, essentially, so that only he has the arcane power accessible to him. He thinks he's the only one who can do anything responsible with it. And yeah, he's got these whole mage hunters and blue dragons just out really, really causing problems for Dalaran, because Dalaran is, a city of mages, and that he's really at the top of his list that he wants to destroy. Eventually, this Nexus War is dealt with because they team up, the Dalaran Horde Alliance and the other Dragonflights actually eventually just go, and they have to put Malgos down, unfortunately. That's why he is the first aspects to die. And he's eventually succeeded by Kalgos, who becomes the new blue dragon aspect, but that doesn't happen until later. But Kalgos is a character, he's a dragon, but like all dragons, he has the ability to shapeshift into a humanoid form. And he ends up, he has very close relations with Dalaran and sticks around them in much friendlier terms, much more of an alliance than the issues they were having with Malagos before. Next, we have to talk about little political spat that happened involving Dalaran. Dalaran at this point has established itself as a neutral city. It's not with the Alliance, it's not with the Horde. It's helping to promote diplomacy. And, even though two factions are frequently at odds, when there's a bigger threat, we can help to mediate the coordination of the forces. But there's a bit of a problem. The problem is that the Horde faction who lives in Dalaran, who are a group of blood elves known as the Sun Reavers, Well, they kind of end up doing some stuff that works in Horde interests to sabotage the Alliance. Um, Big thing happens when Garrosh Hellscream is put in charge of the Horde, and he is like the most massive warmonger ever. And he has the Sun Reavers utilize portals from Dalaran to steal and smuggle a very powerful artifact while they're fighting over this continent of Pandaria, which I just want to take the moment to pause and say that we really, really need and want a Pandarian Hearthstone expansion. Please, Blizzard, just please give it to us and give us the monk class as well. We've been waiting for so long. It would really complete all the classes. I will stop now, but I really want Pandaria. Anyway, uh, Jaina Proudmoore is the Grand Magus at this time. She's already been through a lot, but we'll go more into detail when we talk about her in the list of the Grand Maguses. But she's been through a lot from the Horde. They destroyed her city really badly that she was in charge of. And so this is the last straw. She completely evicts all of the Sunreaver elves out of Dalaran. It's known as the Purge of Dalaran. She kills ones who resist, ones that surrender. She throws in the Violet Hold, which we'll go more into the Hold again specifically a bit later, but it appears at this point. And so basically it becomes an alliance aligned city because Jane is in charge of it. She's with the alliance. She hates the Horde, and there goes the neutrality, unfortunately. But it does end up returning. Because later on, the Burning Legion launches a massive invasion. This is during the Warcraft expansion, simply titled Legion. And once again, Dalaran serves as a neutral base of operation. Jaina Proudmoore is actually so angry at the allowing the Horde back into Dalaran that she quits her job, and a new guy takes over. And so they teleport the city again, this time over the Broken Isles, which is the place where this big demon portal has opened from a place called the Tomb of Sargeras, and like the whole invasion is just spilling out. So that's two different expansions in Warcraft, where Dalaran basically acts as a hub where you can go, yeah, all your vendors, you can interact with people of the other faction in a nice neutral place. Yeah, just a nice place to serve as headquarters.
I feel like that would take a lot of energy to teleport a whole city.
It does. It takes the entire effort of all the most powerful wizards who rule Dalaran and leaves them a little winded afterwards, I'm sure. It also isn't the greatest experience for people who live there because everything gets all taken up. Imagine, for example, that you run a bookstore on Dalaran and the whole place just teleports to another spot in the sky. You are going to be spending a while reshelving those books, I am pretty sure, at any other related situation. But yeah, so depending on where you go within the game World of Warcraft, Dalaran is either above Northrend or it's in the Broken Isles, just because, the place that's where it was during those different expansions. So you can go to two different Dalarans. All right. Cool. So that's the basic history of the city itself. Now we're going to talk about the Kirin Tor. The Kirin Tor are the rulers of Dalaran. They are essentially the most powerful wizards here. They're also known as the Wizard Council of Dalaran or the Magus Senate of Dalaran, the ruling conclave, lots of different titles that they can have. They are governed by what is known as the Council of Six. These Kirin Tor were original members of the Alliance of Lordaeron, which way back during the periods of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, that was the original alliance of the human kingdoms before the alliance eventually grew into what we know it today of being lots of different races that are involved in it. And they enjoyed that alliance with Silvermoon for quite some time until Jaina really messed it up there. Um, Essentially, they are ruled by the Council of Six, six most powerful rulers who decide all the things going on in Dalaran. And among those six, they elect one of their own to be the Grand Magus. So anytime that you guys have a card, and there are many at this point that say, Kirin Tor this or that, this is the type that we're talking about. This isn't just any wizard. This is like a governmental high-powered wizard of the most magical city in the world, essentially, is what we're talking about here.
Impressive.
Yeah, definitely. We are going to start with our list of the Grand Maguses, talking about Antonidas, who is, I believe, the OG Mage Legendary of Hearthstone in general. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, from Classic, from the very beginning.
Yeah, from the classic. It's funny you do the aha. I find myself
Aha.
daily just doing that sound, like when I'm at the time clock and I clock in or out, I'm like, aha! Or various other things that I do in my life, small things like a small little exclamation of triumph. I just do Antonius's card voice line for some reason, just when he's making the fireballs.
Have you
Yeah.
ever heard it in other languages? He's quite cheeky in Polish. He
I
doesn't
have
sound
not.
serious. He's like, ah ha ha. Ah, ha. It's like this is. I'm like, no, sir. Excuse me, sir. You need to re-record that to be more serious. Yeah, no, it's fun because one of my redeems for my channel is change the stream language. I owe somebody Russian next time I go. But like, which is fine because like we know the cards so well at this point in Wild that it's like, oh yeah, I know this by basically pictorial. It's very rare that I usually get screwed up. It's usually Polish. Yeah, so Polish Antonidas has a completely different take to his aha, which is funny. It's because it's different voice actors, right? Like it's localized, so they're saying things the way that they say it. So it's different voice actors, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this doesn't sound right, or something as silly as the aha is different.
That is hilarious. I love that. I might have to start tuning into more of your streams just to hear some of this craziness because I'm not
Save
going
up
to do
your
that
channel
now.
It doesn't
points
happen
too,
often,
and use
but
use them on Schmoopydady. That's what I think. I mostly use my channel points with Schmoopydady to change the language,
I
or
will
to
keep
get
that in mind potentially.
or to get them to read a children's story, or
that
there's
is true. Yeah. Pop on pop.
So anyway, Antonidas, he was just a kid when he became an apprentice to one of the members of the Kirin Tor. Kirin Tor had been around a long time, keep in mind. And this dude was like devouring books. He's prodigy material here. It says that he'd outclassed his peers and elders at the age of 12. Where he wrote a thesis titled The Ramifications of Refined Reverse Time Travel Phenomena in Quantifiable Magical Practice.
he's that
guy. Just writing your thesis right there. And he honed his abilities for a long time. Particularly was good at defensive magic. Became like really wise over time. Developed that reputation, and eventually just ended up getting to the final position of the Council of Six and all the way up to Archmage. This was a time as we get into the periods of Warcraft and Warcraft 2, where there's the big invasion of the orcs through the Dark Portal, and then eventually they managed to have the demon blood stuff eradicated with they get this lethargy. They lose that bloodlust when they don't have that demonic influence going on. And this is something that Antonidas was really interested in studying, because at this point there's a lot of orcs in internment camps. The Alliance, the humans just didn't want to necessarily kill them all. They're trying to figure out what to do with them, so they have them in these internment camps. Although, some of the Alliance leaders did want to kill them. It was a very controversial issue. But Antonidas, he's just doing a bunch of research on this, and he publishes several theses on his research. They're called A Casualty of War, A Comprehensive Study of Orc Lassitude, The Contrast of Orc Tradition, Sociology, and Psychological Processes from Before and After the Second War, and Empirical Study on the Formulation and History of High-Profile Fell Magics and Their Relation to the Orc Race. I just love how, this guy is you distill down the essence of stereotypes of academics, and you get this guy. Which I'm sure Schmoopydady might have some insights on as well.
Yeah.
You encountered anything like that?
Nerds. Yeah, I don't teach him though.
That's hilarious.
So now we get back to that whole part of Dalaran getting destroyed. Because he's in charge when all of that happens. And unfortunately, this is the point where he dies as a part of all of this. Beforehand, however, he had been trying to do something a bit more proactive. Jaina Proudmoore was actually his apprentice. He is the one who taught her everything that she knows about magic. And during this time, there's this mysterious guy going around known only as the Prophet, who is warning people about this great invasion that's going to happen, this great disaster, which eventually is the Scourge and the Burning Legion. This guy is actually Medivh, who was brought back to life by his mom after he initially died way back in Warcraft 1. And he's the one who's trying to get all these different factions to cooperate together. And so he's meeting with many prominent figures to try to warn them about the incoming invasion. Antonidas, unfortunately, he doesn't heed this advice strong enough to personally investigate. He does send Jaina to go and try to see if there's anything like this. She ends up teaming up with Arthas. They have their whole story that goes on. But he knows that there's threats, but he doesn't take things quite as seriously as he should, unfortunately. Better than some of the other people that Medivh ended up going to, who just were complete inactive at all. But yeah, it wasn't the greatest. Actually, an artifact called the Book of Medivh is the whole reason that Arthas and Kel'Thuzad came to Dalaran in the first place. They needed to steal this very powerful book in order to summon Archimond in the first place. And so they did a whole invasion and sneaking into Dalaran in order to steal the book. But this is the part where Antonidas falls, because Arthas just kills him. He warned Arthas that he'd conjured a powerful aura which would kill any undead that stepped inside the city, but it didn't really stop the most powerful of these, and so they're just like, yep, you're gonna die, we're gonna take the book, summon a demon, and demon destroys the entire city. Not the greatest, but that whole story is a thing for another time, again, that we have talked about previously here. The next person to take over is a guy named Ronan. Ronan is actually has connections to other characters that you guys are familiar with. Alexstrasza, for example, he was actually responsible before he became the Archmage for helping to free her from her imprisonment when she was enslaved by the Horde using the Dragon Soul, which we talked about in our last episode with the Cataclysm. He also ended up marrying Illyria Windrunner, who we now have has been a hero in the Hunter class for quite some time, and we also have as a card, and then also a version in the still relevant expansion from the Timeways with Sylvanas' card, where she has all of her sisters involved there, and Illyria is a card in one of those as well.
Right.
Ronan is the guy who helped build everything up. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's Vanessa Windrunner that he's married to, not Illyria. Illyria married Terrellian, another card who's like a big paladin guy. Yeah, I misspoke on that one. Apologies. But yeah, Ronan helped to rebuild the entire city after it was destroyed. He's the one who was in charge during the Nexus War, while it's above Northrend, helping to coordinate assaults on the Lich King. And he ends up dying in a really dramatic way. This is the whole thing. When I said before that Jaina had had some issues with the Horde and the Sunreavers previously, and that one thing they did was the last straw that got her to purge them. So basically, Garrosh Hellscream tricked the Alliance into gathering a ton of their most important people and resources at Jaina's city of Theramore. This is a city that she ruled on the continent of Kalimdor, which is mainly Horde ruled.
Okay.
Garrosh wanted all of Kalimdor to be under Horde control, and so he's like, we're going to conquer this city. We're going to make sure that there's no Alliance presence on this continent at all. He tricks them into getting all the resources there, and then he just drops a mana bomb, which is basically a magic atomic bomb on the city. Ronan gets absolutely vaporized. He sacrifices himself in order to localize the explosion so that it doesn't destroy.
He jumped on the grenade.
Yes, he jumped on the grenade. And like Jaina tries to stop him, but he's like creates a portal and pushes her through. And so yeah, he's just atomized by this mana bomb. And Jaina, she doesn't take this whole thing well. Many people that she knows and loves, and her entire city have just been absolutely obliterated. Keep in mind that up to this point, Jaina has been the person advocating for peace with the Horde because she knows Thrall, and you know they're good friends. And she actually helped Bane Bloodhoof at a point too. And so like she's always been the one who's like, I see good in the Horde. We should stop fighting them. We should try to have peace. This sets her on a completely 180. She becomes a big warmonger path. Actually, the versions of her that have a white hair that you see the art of, that happened to her because of the mana bomb. Like all that magic just like turned a fair portion of her hair white. So yeah, gave her a cosmetic change. In spite of all of this, the Dalaran decides to elevate her to the position of Archmage. In spite of the fact that she's a bit emotionally unstable, she literally, in response to this, attempted to summon a tidal wave to drown the entire Horde capital of Orgrimmar, including innocent, children and everyone who lived there. It was only from Thrall and Caligos working together to convince her that no, you don't want to do this. You're going to hurt a lot of innocents, and they got her to finally stand down. Interestingly, for a while, Jaina had a bit of a romantic will they, won't they with Caligos, the guy who's literally the dragon in charge of magic at this point. They never became an official relationship, and they eventually kind of broke things off largely because her turmoil with all the Horde stuff kind of, she wasn't ready for a relationship and all that. But it was an interesting little thing that happened for her at one point. So yeah, and as I said, she eventually quit her job. She just left in a huff, and the entire council, because the Archmage doesn't rule everything like, a dictator. You need the support of the rest of the Council of Six. And she got outvoted for about not allowing the Horde in. And so she's just like, fine, then I'm not going to be a part of any of this. She just leaves. And so Khadgar ends up taking well, he basically ends up stepping up. Don't know if there was any official vote necessarily, but this is a time of crisis with all the demons invading. So, like, okay, someone needs to step up. I'm going to help coordinate all the forces here. Khadgar is been around for a while. He's actually significantly younger than he looks. He was Medivh's apprentice way back during the Warcraft 1 game period. He was initially sent by the Kirin Tor as kind of a spy because Medivh is this big, powerful guardian who's supposed to, have the combined powers of a lot of the people of Dalaran. That's supposed to be protecting the world, but he's acting a little weird and mysterious, and they don't know what's going on. So they send Khadgar to be his apprentice, but also to report back about what he's doing. Khadgar,
Bit of a spy.
yeah, he ends up getting caught up in some magic that steals his youth. So he is aged up physically, so that's why he has gray hair and everything. But he's actually not quite as old as he looks.
I don't remember that. That's neat.
He actually ended up striking up a pretty good friendship with Garona, who was also hanging around Karazhan, Medivh's tower at the time, because they were both like, okay, but what's going on here? And so, yeah, after that whole thing, he was partially responsible for discovering that Medivh was actually possessed by the spirit of Sargeras and helping to end him, so that he didn't, let all the demons into the world, that he had actually been secretly controlling the Horde. But once all of that was over, he ended up actually going to the realm of Outland, which is the destroyed remnants of the Orc homeworld of Draenor. And during Warcraft 2, the Dark Portal is opening again, and the Horde's coming back. And so there's an expedition called the Sons of Lothar that is sent in. Incidentally, that elf I mentioned earlier, Aurelia Windrunner, and her husband, Terrellian, they're also part of this group. And so these guys go in. They kind of get trapped in there after, like, there's the whole massive explosion that shatters the world into Outland, and the portal is destroyed. And so everyone back on Azeroth thinks that Khadgar and everyone else is dead, and they build statues in their honor and everything. But then eventually, during the expansion, the Burning Crusade, when everyone else goes to Outland, they discover, hey, these guys are still alive. And so Khadgar ends up rejoining the affairs of Azeroth after that and reconnecting with Dalaran and the Council of Six and all of that. He really ends up coming into place during the expansion Warlords of Draenor, which is the one right before Legion. This is a whole complicated thing where Garrosh went back in time and brought an orc army from an alternate universe to Roth.
Right.
Khadgar ends up leading the strike team to go into the portal and stop that army. And that's where he kind of really started becoming a prominent character in World of Warcraft. And then he just kind of took over continued his central role in the story and the Legion expansion as he began that central role of uniting everybody against the Legion. He's just all over that particular expansion. And he is officially still in charge right now. Dalaran hasn't really had any major story significance for the past several expansions. So the good news for them is if you're not part of the main story, there's not bad stuff happening to you probably. So they can rest easy for a little bit. Hey.
I mean, no one's trying to blow them up right now, so I guess that's pretty good. That's good news. Yeah.
Now we can finally get to the crux of the matter. What everything's been building up to is the Violet Hold itself. The Violet Hold is essentially like Dalaran's dungeons. Back when it was a city built on the ground, like a normal city, it was literally dungeons below the ground and everything. Nowadays, since it's a floating city, that's kind of a bit harder to do. So it's more of an above ground establishment. It's just like a big magical prison here. The cells are magically shielded, and it's basically a spot to keep really, really dangerous things. It's the max security prison. It's the Alcatraz. It is the vault of keeping like just let me put it this way. The types of things that are kept here include old god monsters, demons, very powerful rogue wizards. So there's like the really big things that you do not want getting out. And you either can't kill or maybe you want to keep around for study for some reason. This is the reason that Hearthstone decided to take this concept and expand on it into the idea of a prison break. Within the expansion, they've really expanded the physical size of it compared to what it is in the game. And they've kind of imagined a lot more versions of types of prisoners that would be kept in this that might not necessarily have been a part of the initial conceptualization within World of Warcraft. But it is very much faithful to the concept of the Violet Hold. And I like imagining that it could eventually be something like that within the story, similar to what Hearthstone did with Gadget Stan. Yes, Hydra.
I was just saying because I'm reading the Harry Potter books. It's like the Death Eaters have escaped from Azkaban.
Azkaban, yes, thank you. That's I was looking for that and I stumbled on Alcatraz instead. But yes, it is basically the Azkaban of this world.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, like I love what Hearthstone did with expanding the town of Gadgetstan within the game compared to what it is as just like a very small little desert place in World of Warcraft. So I like imagining, if it hasn't been denied officially, I like imagining that that's what it's really like within the story as opposed to the limitations that you can have it in the game. Within the game, it serves as a dungeon, two separate times actually. The first time is during the Nexus War when we're in Wrath of the Lich King expansion, and it's a dungeon where blue dragons are sent to destroy Dalaran, and one of the ways that they're doing that is by trying to break all of the magical seals on the Violet Hold and get all the prisoners out, and that's going to help in the city's destruction. It being a dungeon, you obviously beat all the bosses, and that doesn't happen. Second version of the Violet Hold dungeon happens during Legion expansion, where it's the same basic concept. It is Legion forces that are creating fell portals to open up inside the city, bypassing all of its magical defenses. And there's various bosses that you fight that are prisoners that get, released, and then you kill them. And then it's actually kind of a randomized boss encounter sort of dungeon, actually. You never know which one you're going to fight. So yeah, that's the concept that the Violet Hold is at this point that Hearthstone is picking up on and just really expanding on. Now, before we have our little intermission and start talking about most of the legendary cards within this particular expansion, I want to talk a bit about the role that Maiev Shadowsong is playing in this whole thing. She, within Warcraft lore, has no connections to the Violet Hold. Within the Hearthstone expansion, they say she's a new warden who's being brought in to handle things, which I think makes sense. But who is this lady? She is complicated and old. You guys remember I frequently talk in these lore episodes about the War of the Ancients. You guys remember what the War of the Ancients is? Shmoopy, I'm going to call on you. in the back of the class there.
War of the Ancients, was that between the old gods and the Titans?
No, although with a name
Alright.
like War of the Ancients, that it could be called that. But no, this was much later after that. It involved night elves.
So that would have been. Is this where we start getting the split between the blood elves and the night elves?
That happens a little bit after this, but it has its root in
Okay.
this. This is okay. Does the
This
name
isn't.
Queen Azara remind you of anything?
I think I'm cooked on this one. Sorry, Cap.
Hydra.
No, I was just gonna say that I like this is part of Burning Crusade, right? I believe. This happened in BC,
No, the
Burning
War of the
Crusade.
Ancients happened 10,000 years ago.
Well,
We're-
yes.
We're setting
Yes.
up. I know we're setting up like how we get demon hunters.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, it,
so-
it definitely is. Yeah. No, yeah, I understand that it's the whole like Illidan stuff all happens. and
Yes,
whatnot,
yes,
but-
this is the
yeah.
stuff with Illidan. Yeah, basically, this is the first time the Burning Legion tried to invade Azeroth. They've done it like a total of 3 times at this point. This was the first one, 10,000 years ago, using Queen Azara, the massive egomaniac leader of the Night Elves. Remember, the lady who literally renamed an entire city from the goddess they worshipped to naming it after herself. And she invited all the demons in, thinking they're going to give her power. The thing about the split that you were touching on between the Blood Elves and the Night Elves, that actually does have its roots here because the Blood Elves are descended from the Highborn, all the nobles who sided with Queen Azara in that war. And the Night Elves that we have today were descended from the much more common Druidic folk who were fighting against her. But at this point, Maiev Shadowsong is one of those night elves. She's the sister of a guy named Jared Shadowsong, who's actually one of the earliest resistance leaders in the War of the Ancients. Who's helping to we need to fight it back against Queen Ashara. She's responsible for this. I know you all don't want to believe this. You love her so much, but seriously, we need to do something about this. And so she and her brother, and then eventually you get Tyrande and Illidan and Malfurion, and all those central people have their big roles to play in leading the resistance in the War of the Ancients. Maiev Shadowsong is actually a priestess. She is a senior priestess in the Sisterhood of Elune, which is what Tyrande belongs to. She actually has a bit of a rivalry with Tyrande for various reasons over the years. But the initial thing is that she basically gets passed over for the promotion of the head of the order. Tyrande gets the job. And she's objecting and she's a little miffed about it. But yeah, he just kind of accepts it. That's what the authorities say. However, eventually Tyrande gets captured in the War of the Ancients, and the existing leader disappears. And so, just by being the most senior person around, Maiev actually does end up becoming put in charge of the entire Sisterhood of Elune. So she got her wish, I guess. After all of this, after the War of the Ancients ends and the entire continent is sundered, and the elves manage to find Mount Hyjal as a safe haven so that they don't drown in all this cataclysmic stuff that's going on. This is the part where Illidan really ticks people off by creating a brand new Well of Eternity.
Right,
Remember that this
Yep.
whole thing just happened because demons were trying to use the other Well of Eternity as a portal, and so people are really, really mad at Illidan. And so, like, some want to kill him, but Malfurion is just like, no, we're just going to imprison him in an underground burrow that's going to nullify his magic for all of eternity. Uh, if that were me, I think I would probably prefer to opt for death and just go on to the afterlife, which, obviously exists in this world, than just being stuck in a prison for all of eternity. But that's me. Illidan wasn't too happy about the whole thing either. I don't think he would have liked either option. But
Seems a little bitter.
Maiev thinks that Malfurion is being way too lenient because Illidan killed people that were trying to stop him. And so she's like, you can't be unsupervised. I am going to be the one to guard him, and I'm going to have other members of my sisterhood also guard him. And they became known as the Wardens. So within the expansion, Maya is taking on the role of warden of a prison, but she's literally also the leader of a faction called the Wardens, who specifically were initially just all about watching over Illidan for 10,000 years, just making sure he doesn't break out.
That is job
But
security.
hey, yeah, it really is when you think about it. Over time, however, their job description did just kind of naturally expand from only guarding Illidan to capturing, guarding, and sometimes having to recapture other powerful enemies that needed to be dealt with. And it just so happens that now we're at the point of Warcraft 3 events where things are getting so bad with the Scourge and the Legion that Tyrande decides to break Illidan out of prison because she thinks, okay, we need to hit the big red button here and unleash him because he can help us in spite of our great reservations about him because he's used fell power. And he did technically betray us back in the War of the Ancients, but he says he was just doing it to gain knowledge of the enemy so he could help us, but we don't necessarily believe him. It's like no one really trusts Illidan, but Tyrande decides to hit that big red button. Maiev gets back, finds that the one person that she's obsessed over guarding for 10,000 years is gone. And ooh boy, she was obsessed before, but she dogs Illidan like always one step behind him, but never quite catching him. He keeps trying to do different stuff to fight against the Lich King. It gets thwarted. He ends up going into Outland to working for Kill Jaden, but like not really. And it's his whole thing about trying to infiltrate the Legion so he can destroy them. But like everyone else thinks he's just the bad guy. And granted, he is doing a lot of evil stuff in this process. And Maiev literally follows him all the way through the portal to Outland, which then closed behind her and her warden. So they're stuck on this alien land that they don't know anything about. She captures him briefly, but he gets sprung. He captures her eventually. It's this whole back
Cat and
and
mouse.
forth cat and mouse. Exactly, cat and mouse.
Yeah.
Until eventually, like, you get to the Burning Crusade, where everyone goes to Outland, and she is one of the ones when you have Illidan as the big final boss of the Black Temple raid. She's right there fighting with you. It's like I'm finally going to get to kill Illidan. I've been waiting for this for so long.
That's what I was referring to about it being in Burning Crusade.
Yeah, definitely. And then after that, she doesn't quite know what to do with her life necessarily, because the one thing that she's spent 10,000 years focusing on, that's done and gone. So she's like, what do I do now? Um, so she goes back to live with the Night Elves in Azeroth in their big tree city of Darnassus. Um, but she doesn't necessarily like the situation she finds herself in because the Night Elves have grown to be a bit more tolerant over time, and they've allowed some of the Highborn to rejoin them. Not all the Highborn became Blood Elves, so that arcane magic is now allowed to be practiced in the Night Elf Society. They're allowing the Worgen to live with them, who are refugees after a city was destroyed. The Night Elves feel some responsibility because the Worgen curse was initially a Night Elf creation that got out of hand. And Maiev is kind of something of a Night Elf supremacist, really. And so she's like, I don't like any of these people. I want them gone.
Yeah.
She starts secretly assassinating some of the Highborn mages, but like really covering her tracks. Um, she's like really upset with Malfurion and actually tries to sabotage and get rid of him. this all happens during one of the books, not in a part of the game, actually. And then she just kind of disappears for a while until the Burning Legion expansion, where it turns out that she's been in charge of this place on the Broken Isles called the Vault of the Wardens, which contains all of the demon hunters, all of Illidan's followers who were captured after Illidan was killed at the end of the Burning Crusade. Uh, Things get so desperate when the Legion invades that she's like, okay, now I have to press the big red button. And she frees all of the demon hunters to come out and fight the Legion and protect her, uh, which is how we get the demon hunter class within World of Warcraft. If you roll up a new demon hunter character, your very first thing is a cinematic of Maiev capturing you, and then later on breaking you out years later. And you have to go and help her defeat all the demons that are invading the Vaults of the Wardens. She's continued her work with the Night Elves for this period of time, all the way up to the current story. Always tumultuous, technically one of the good guys, but she's a very my version of justice. I am the judge, jury, and executioner type of character.
I'm better than you.
Yes. So putting her in charge of the Violet Hold within this Hearthstone expansion, that it's really cracking down. Like things are, I think they did that story-wise to really up the stakes and emphasize if Maiev is here, it's going to be even harder than it would be otherwise to break out of this prison. So I think that's the role that they're really putting her in within the expansion storyline.
Right.
And that's about it regarding her role here. We'll talk about the rest of the characters who appear in Legendary Cards in the new expansion momentarily. First, we'll have a little interlude. You know, Hydra, I've been thinking that Maiev has something common with all the people who tune into a Born to Be Wild stream.
Oh, is
They're
it
always-
because? Yeah, they're just spectating, aren't they?
Got a daily quest, be a spectating guest. And as you might have guessed, because you play the best, I'll be watching you. Every card you play, and every foe you slay, gets me XP today, so I've gotta say, I'll be watching you. Oh, I can see your winning strategy. I'll adjust my decks to get the same effects. Every spell you cast and every bank you've passed. Audiences are massed, every stream broadcast. I'll be watching you. Since we started co-op, voice chatting in-game, pull up my friends list, I find your username, walking me through strategy, new skills I gain, helping me rise up the ranks to new acclaim. I keep crying, watch me please. I can see your winning strategy. I'll adjust my decks to get the same effects. Every card you craft and every minion backed. deck you draft, every weapon slash, I'll be watching you. Every game you play, every foe you slay, I'll be watching you. I'll be watching you. Every card you play, every foe you slay, every spell you cast, I'll be watching you. Every card you craft, every minion dash, every deck you craft, I'll be watching you. Every card you play, every foe you slay, every spell you cast, I'll be watching you. Every card you craft, every minion dash, every deck you craft, I'll be watching you. Every card you play, every foe you slay, every spell you cast, I'll be watching you. Every card you craft, every minion dash, every deck you craft, I'll be watching you.
You had an interesting expression on your face that whole time, Schmoopy.
Incredible audio effects. Okay, so like for me, the original song is like I'm driving around my hometown with my babysitter, and I'm like 5 years old, right? And so like I was hit by both nostalgia, but also just the ridiculousness of it was also hitting me at the same time. So I had some real mixed feelings. You nailed the audio effects, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, the layering at the end.
layering is incredible.
Yeah.
I had that one kicking around my head for a while, and I felt that this was the time to bring it out because it's an expansion about prisons and breaking out and wardens, and the song is literally sung by the police. So, felt appropriate.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh man, no, the layering, that was like a lot of work, but also like syncing it up for when the normal, like the perfect time for when it would be happening in the song. No. 10 out of 10 for parody songs. It was incredible.
Thank you. I really appreciate that one. You'd be surprised how hard
appreciated
it is
that one.
sometimes to find the whole thing for that song is that it's all built with every line ends with words that sound with the same sounds. And
Take, make, shake, blah blah blah, like that
yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
It becomes a bit more challenging than it looks initially, but it's really fun. I love making these with you guys. All right, now back to our feature presentation. We are going to now be talking about the rest of the cards, the rogues on this side here. We talked about the one side, the people of Dalaran, the ones in charge, Maiev stepping into this role here. But let's talk about the kingpin on the other end here. Who is Vanessa Van Cleef? Now, we have talked about her before on the show, way back when we did our episode about the Dead Mines.
That was a good Nate Wolf impression there, by the way.
I wasn't even trying to.
Sounded like it.
Nice.
Back in my day.
Does anyone remember anything about Vanessa or her father, Edwin Van Cleef? Anything about the Dead Mines at all? Schmoopy, yes, you in the back there.
Yeah, no. So I remember that you know she wants to avenge her father, and is sort of still collecting. It's like it was like a rebellion of like labor workers, right? And so Edwin gets them all together, and then Vanessa's trying to follow up and do the same thing with that added little edge of like, well, we're gonna avenge my dad. That's essentially what I remember about her and her story.
That's a good sum up of everything, yeah. So, specifically, it was a stonemasons guild, actually. Edwin was a stonemason, and there was a whole thing that was actually initiated secretly behind the scenes by the Black Dragon Onyxia to stir up trouble in
For the
Stormwind.
Brotherhood.
Yes. So the nobles ended up not paying all the stonemasons who rebuilt the city, and they had this rebellion as a result. Edwin Van Cleef emerges as their leader, and so they retreat to this region known as Westfall, which is kind of like a big breadbasket of the area for Stormwind. There's like a bunch of farms and wheat fields and all that type of stuff over there. Um, so this it becomes the headquarters of the Defias Brotherhood. They try this whole thing where they're going to build this massive juggernaut ship to go and destroy Stormwind. Within the initial vanilla World of Warcraft, you have the Dead Mines dungeon, where Edwin Van Cleef is the final boss who is killed at the end of it. Then later on in the Cataclysm expansion, they rebuilt several zones. So there's different versions of them and different versions of dungeons. So within the story, when you go to Westfall, which is very early on in if you're playing an alliance character, especially a human, you start out in Elwyn Forest, and Westfall will be probably the next zone that you go to. Um, there is a lady that you meet there named Hope, who's been adopted by this older couple there who took her in when she was a little girl and just helped raise her, and she's like a real helper in the community. But it turns out that this is actually Edwin's daughter, who is retconned to have been there and secretly witnessed her father's death at the hands of the player heroes within the original Dead Mines dungeon. So, there's that trauma of watching your father get murdered right in front of you. And so, yeah, exactly what you said, Shmoopy, that she has that whole avenge my dad aspect really baked in here and wanting to carry on his legacy. She really leans into her persona with that name that's given her hope, and like she has a whole public persona of I'm just helping out the community, but is really secretly rebuilding the entire Defias Brotherhood, and she has her dad's plans for that battleship and all of that. And so there's a second Dead Mines dungeon that is done within the Cataclysm expansion, and she is when it was initially came out, she actually was killed in the end of that dungeon. However, then later on, Blizzard was like, that's a good character. And during the Legion expansion, we are doing this whole thing where we're gathering together all the greatest characters of a specific class, and we really don't have enough rogues. So let's say that Vanessa didn't actually die. She
Redact.
just used hallucinogenic drugs to make it look like she died. Um, so that's Vanessa's thing, is that she's not
As
a
you do.
massive hand-to-hand combat fighter like her dad. She has been said she specializes in poisons and hallucinogenics and drugs and
I
all that
was
sort.
never dead. It's like classic soap opera. Like,
Yeah, yes. And so then she's a companion that you can have as a rogue when you play that class hall there. Um, but yeah, she basically neurotoxin. She says that she easily faked her death because her opponent's minds had been affected by neurotoxins. Um, but she ends up actually attacking after a player becomes a member of a secret group called the Uncrowned within the Legion expansion, which is a group of rogues that are all working together. They are kind of like, the secret people behind the scenes, like secret society. They're the ones who topple kings and raise new ones and all that. Vanessa ends up attacking you, but with a poison brew that incapacitates you. And she planned on taking the final spot on the Uncrowned's Council and challenging your player character as about to claim it. She loses, but she ends up just being like, "Hey, I'll just be your agent, and you can send her off on missions as your sidekick, essentially during this particular time of crisis." Um, she actually ends up having quite the character development. because she eventually abandons this whole device thing. Um, the device actually ends up turning on her. There's a noble by the name of Count Clessington who arranges for the device.
Clessington.
Yeah, Clessington.
So fancy.
This all happens during the more recent Dragonflight expansion, where he is a disgraced noble and he manages to get members of the Defias to steal this powerful item called the Drakefire Amulet from Stormwind. And it has powers of manipulation, so he uses it to convince Defias to turn against Vanessa and march on a place called Northshire Abbey with the aim of using it as a staging ground to pillage Stormwind itself. Um, this is a bit of an awakening moment for Vanessa. She sees that the Brotherhood is turned against her so easily, and she realizes, I'm not really one of them anymore. We're too different. And there's some Defias that remain loyal to her, and she tells them to return home and help the people of Westfall in other ways. They're like, we're still going to be guardians of this place. We're not going to let all those hoity-toity nobles in in Stormwind abuse the common folk and the farmers of this region. But they're abandoning the criminal aspect here. This Count Clessington guy is slain, the Drakefire Amulet is destroyed, and Vanessa decides that she's going to find her own legacy rather than continuing her father's. She actually returns back to the couple who raised her as their adopted daughter. She has actual remorse for her actions and actually takes on that name that they gave her, Hope, as like a legitimate identity once again. So within the story of Warcraft, she's really turning over a new leaf. However, within our Hearthstone expansion, we're kind of catching her before any of that sort of stuff happens. Um, where theoretically in a timeline this would take place, I mean, Hearthstone is all about an alternate version of things, so it doesn't really neatly fit in. I would guess if it were to, the Legion expansion would make the most sense because that's when we have Maiev being really active in the story. Vanessa Van Cleave is active in the story with that whole uncrowned rogues guild that's fighting the Legion. And it's where we're in Dalaran, and the Violet Hold is literally a dungeon that's in that expansion. So I don't know particularly if the Hearthstone devs have anything in mind, but I'd say from my knowledge of the overall lore, if we were to try to pin this at a point it could theoretically happen within the larger WoW lore, I would think that that would probably be the place.
Yeah.
So now we're going to kind of speed through a few other things here. One thing that I should probably make sure that the audience is aware of is that for this particular Hearthstone expansion, they really leaned into making a lot of original characters, which they do a lot at the time. And Hearthstone original characters can be great. Some of them even actually start as Hearthstone characters and eventually make their way into World of Warcraft.
Right.
Like the League of Explorers, people like Elise and Finley and Reno. They're all NPCs you can sometimes find in World of Warcraft who got their origin story in Hearthstone. So it can go back and forth. Hearthstone makes many wonderful original characters. They're just not really ones that I can really talk about or have much to say in a lore format like this. So we're going to be focusing on the cards that have a basis of original characters within World of Warcraft. So our first one we're talking about is Blood Doctor Thalina. She is actually the daughter of Blood Queen Lanthil, a Hearthstone card that we have from the past back in the Frozen Throne expansion. Uh, at this point, we've had a couple expansions featuring the Lich King, and I have to make sure to get them sorted out in my mind correctly.
Yeah.
This wasn't March of the Lich King. This was back in the Frozen Throne one when she came out. But she is, as I said, a San Lane. San Lane are basically Warcraft's version of vampires. They are blood elves who eventually got killed by the Lich King and resurrected in a very specific way as a different type of undead than the typical, just kind of zombie like ones that he raises up. Um, these blood elves in particular were ones who were following Kael'thas Sunstrider, that's legendary all the way back from the Ashes of Outland expansion, on an assault on the Frozen Throne. They were working with Illidan at the time, and they were like, we're going to kill the Lich King. Uh, Arthas ends up killing them. And then, as he becomes the Lich King, he raises them as Vampire Dark Fallen. But this is vampire that's spelled with a Y, so you know it's a little different.
Ah.
The Stan Lane are just kind of the organization that they're told into. Um, and basically, they just really emphasize that blood aspect of undead. Death Knights and undead, they're pretty much divided in Warcraft into aspects of Frost, Unholy, and Blood. These guys really lean into the blood aspect. They're kind of like they're coordinators and general type of role within the Scourge, helping to coordinate things, and they're a really big boss within one of the raids of Icecrown Citadel, and a few different dungeons within the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. Now, this particular one that we have here, this doctor, she is the daughter of Blood Queen Lanithil, and during all of this stuff, she was captured, and so she is actually one of the possible bosses that can happen if you do a dungeon run of one of the versions of Violet Holt. So this is actually a boss that you can fight within World of Warcraft. Next, we have Jailhouse Manastorm. And okay, it's about time we finally explain who this guy is, because he just keeps popping up. Really, just keeps popping up is kind of his entire identity. He's not a guy with deep lore or an extensive backstory. He's basically a meme within World of Warcraft, and now even more so in Hearthstone,
Is he
who
still
just keeps coming back.
like? Is it the same? Is this Millhouse Manastorm? Is this the exact
This is
same?
Millhouse Manastorm,
You
but
just wait until I have 10 mana.
every card has to have a slightly different name for identification purposes. So this is Jailhouse Manastorm. Now, what's Millhouse Manastorm doing in the Violet Hold, you might ask? Well, it's actually decently in character for him. So basically, he just has several small appearances. Almost, he's like a cameo character throughout different expansions. He's first encountered in the Burning Crusade expansion when he's in. Actually, we were talking about Alcatraz and Azkaban earlier. Uh, this is actually a kind of parody with a similar naming convention. It's a dungeon called Arcatraz, and it's imprisonment for dangerous beings that are encountered by the Naru, who you will remember are the big light creatures that the Draenei have a lot to do with. This case, Millhouse, you during the fight, you kind of accidentally free him from imprisonment, but it turns out that he actually wasn't like a really dangerous being who was imprisoned. He was a stowaway who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and ended up in this prison. And he just kind of like helps you in the fight just a little bit. He's just kind of, oh, here's the joke. There's this funny gnome character that pops up while you were expecting a big scary boss. And that's just what he starts with. Then in the Cataclysm expansion, he really took a turn because this is where we have the Twilight's Hammer cult, who, again, is a faction that we talked about in our last episode regarding the Cataclysm. People led by the Twilight Father, who is Archbishop Benedictus, and Cho'Gall, that type of cultist heralding the end times. Millhouse Manastorm kind of ended up joining them. How sincere he was or if he just kind of stumbled into it. I don't know if we're entirely know for absolutely certain, but he was like had some level of authority within the Twilight's Hammer cult. And as a character fights them, uh, you end up hitting him over a precipice where he is
Okay.
presumably killed. But as we all know within a story, apparently falling off of a cliff is absolutely never fatal at all.
Never, ever.
Nope.
Especially if you
Always,
disappear in a mist.
yes. If no
Mist
body,
breaks your fall.
no death.
Right. I mean, your last name is Mana Storm. You could use like magic to save yourself, you know?
Yeah,
Like, and no one
I'm
would
sure
ever know.
yeah. Um, he later then appears as a gladiator in the Brawlers Guild, which across different Warcraft expansions is basically a like you go down into this underground fight pit in your capital city and you run through a series of solo bosses and like you get a cool mount or something if you beat them all and like surprise, here's Millhouse, and he's a gladiator now. He must have had some interesting stuff happen in between all that.
That's funny.
Then he next pops up in Warlords of Draenor when the player has a garrison that they are building, and if you build an inn, there's certain quests that you can undertake, NPCs who show up. He will pop up there and very quickly assure you that he is a changed gnome. He's not part of that Twilight Hammer stuff anymore, and he's working on a humanitarian project that he needs your help with. And after you help him out enough, he becomes a follower that you can send on missions and everything. Um, we later learn that he is married to Maleficent Manastorm, who is someone that we can play as in Battlegrounds. She has her little mech abilities and everything. Um, he played a role in the Legion expansion. As I said, every during this expansion, every class had a whole thing of a class hall where there are lore characters of their class who you join with and you have your own story. He is part of the mage's storyline. He's trying to get this powerful soul stone that can like imprison a dreadlord and it'll make him more powerful. And he tries to get this thing, and Khadgar says, no, go search for some other artifacts. You can't have this one. And he literally runs off explaining, "You're not my friends anymore." Uh,
Oh man,
That's a good impression.
thank you. Um, yeah, he also like he has a very love-hate relationship with his wife. Like literally, they're always getting into marital spats, and when you're both powerful mages, that can amp things up a little bit.
Polymorph
Very
each other. Yeah.
He actually has a special spell that he has created for mage players recently in recent expansions, where he has created the spell of allowing you to polymorph someone into a duck instead of a sheep.
Oh, nice.
He apparently invented this spell. He is called a duck expert extraordinaire and has a tome called Millhouse's Mana Storming for Beginners tome, which allows you to learn how to turn someone into a duck. This is apparently his greatest accomplishment as a mage.
Looking forward to Polymorph Duck as a Hearthstone card. Sorry.
Somebody needs to call back favors of mojo magic that he's lent to various people. And it turns out that Millhouse and Maleficent Manastorm made a deal with Wansamdi to get extra magic from him, and they don't want to give it up. So within that dungeon, you have to fight them until they're like, fine, we'll give up the magic. So they don't die or anything, but they're having little marital spats during the whole fight. It's hilarious.
Cute.
And that's literally all there is for Millhouse Manastorm. He probably honestly has a bigger presence in Hearthstone than he does in Warcraft. This is what, our third, fourth version of him at this point? I've lost track, honestly. I know that we had his he was in the Festival of Legends, where he had like his whole, uh, musical thing. But yeah, that's kind of all that he is. So, moving on, we're going to talk about Commander Beatrix. Or rather, we're going to talk about
Oh,
her
let's
faction a bit
go.
more. Commander Beatrix is technically a character that does exist in Warcraft. She doesn't really have a story or lore or anything. She's an NPC that exists and has done a handful of things. So we're instead just going to focus on what is the Scarlet Crusade. Um, the Scarlet Crusade are basically the closest you can get to bad guy paladins, which makes sense for, the ones that you would have as paladin classes when you're representing a bunch of criminals that are all breaking out of jail.
Right.
The Scarlet Crusade are an offshoot of the Silver Hand that was initially formed way back in the Warcraft 1 and 2 eras to combat the very first Death Knights that were actually created by Gul'dan. These were the first paladins ever, these Knights of the Silver Hand, merging the skills of the warrior with the holy light abilities of the priest in order to combat this dangerous threat. Um, Eventually, things don't go so well, largely because Arthas becomes a Death Knight and kills Uther, and the Silver Knight kind of ends up splitting as this undeath threat is becoming significant, and they end up forming different factions to try and combat it. The Scarlet Crusade ends up getting infiltrated by a dreadlord who kills their commander and takes his place. And so they're actually secretly, without knowing it, protecting a powerful demon from the Lich King who wants to kill him. And through this influence, the Dreadlord radicalizes them more and more until they see just like anything could be carrying this plague of undeath. It's not only undead you need to be afraid of. It's could be even just any other non-humans. They could be carriers, or just anyone who refuses to agree with you. They are an enemy. So basically, just like kind of your stereotypical religious zealot type of character who's like really dangerous but thinks that they're super righteous. That is basically what the Scarlet Crusade is. Um, they're kind of a reason that, like, when you're playing an undead character or something, that you can have enemies that you fight without feeling too bad because, yeah, you're killing paladins who are trying to eradicate the undead. But these are like the bad paladins, so it's not quite so bad for you to be killing them. So it's easier on the player's conscience, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, they've popped up here and there, causing problems. They've been suppressed. They've come back. Sally Whitemane is actually, yeah, High Inquisitor. She's a leader of them for a time until she's eventually killed and then eventually raised as a Death Knight herself, which is quite the turn from someone who was trying to destroy all those types of creatures beforehand. Um, so yeah, that's the Scarlet Crusade. But they're essentially the closest you get to bad guy paladins, so that's the role that they are fulfilling within this expansion. Um, Next, we're talking about Muggsy. Muggsy doesn't really have any extensive lore either. He is a raid boss. He is the quote unquote heads of security for
Ha!
Jasper Gallywix,
I get it.
who yeah, exactly. Uh, this guy, he initially got his start in Gadget Stand according to the lore. He is a big ogre enforcer. Um, at this point, this is stuff that happens in a more recent expansion of the War Within. Um, Basically, at this point in the story, Gallywix has been ousted as the leader of the goblins. He sided with Sylvanas when she was being a big tyrant over the horde and trying to kill everybody. And the goblins are like, "You're out, finally." And Gazlo is going to be our new goblin in charge here, our trade prince of the cartel. And you know, remember Gazlo, he's been a legendary card in the game for a long time too. He's the one that I believe you play cards and you get mechs or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I played him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that one. He's the guy who's actually in charge of the goblins now. But Gallywix kind of went into hiding, and he has like a big casino fortress, and he's called in every favor from everyone who's ever owed him one, which being the type of character that he is probably quite a few people. He's the definition of greed and opportunism.
Right.
And this whole raid is the goblins being like, okay, we're going to go break in and we're going to get rid of this annoying guy once and for all so that he doesn't come back and reassert power or anything. And Muggsy is basically just one of the final bosses that you fight on your way to Gallywix. It says that he is hired to oversee the casino's day-to-day activities. In recent weeks, he's been reassigned to keep anyone and everyone out of the innermost chambers of the casino. That's from the little dungeon boss information line. And really, that's all that we know about him. He's a relatively recent character. He's a boss. And this is actually a good illustration of one thing I like about Hearthstone, where their use of the legendary card can take someone, just a boss that you might not remember from a raid, and turn them into a more memorable, interesting character through being a card. So that's something I really like that Hearthstone does. You know, in more recent times, they've emphasized the original characters a lot more. And again, they create a lot of great ones. But I really like when they do obscure ones and kind of elevate them up as cards.
Yeah, like I thought that, like, because Doctor Boom is just like a nonsense NPC in WoW, right?
Yeah,
Like,
just a gag reference in not even a boss in a dungeon or anything.
he's just there.
an NPC in a quest.
Yeah.
But Hearthstone really elevated this guy up to star status.
Yeah, so I thought that was super cool. That's a great example of that. Yeah. All right, what do we got next?
Next, we have Godfrey the Betrayer. This is a guy who's really earned his name, the Betrayer, because he is probably hating him is the one single thing that Worgen and Forsaken can agree on. These two races are arch enemies in almost every other way, but they both hate this dude because he betrayed them both. He was initially a noble of Gilneas, who was on the opportunistic side. He had the king's ear, and he was always trying to get things so that, you know, build the wall through this other guy's land, so mine is more important, and untouched. Or, you know, let's rather than going and helping the human kingdoms against this orc threat in full and risking our forces, let's just send a token militia. So, which, you know, I have.
Is he a bit of a manipulator?
Yeah, he's not exactly the evil advisor manipulating the king, but he's very much the I'm going to try to he's very politician. I'm going to try to skew everything in a way that benefits me.
Right.
The king was aware of this, Gen Greymane, but he's like, yeah, it benefits him, but it is also good advice. So, like, I'll consider it anyway, even though I'm aware that he's working his ankles here. Now, during the time when the Worgen curse really affected this at the Cataclysm expansion, because the Cataclysm really broke things up, and this included the big Greymane wall that had been built to keep everybody safe. It got broken, and so threats can come in now. So you have the Worgen curse that's going around turning people into werewolves, essentially. And Godfrey doesn't like this one bit. He's like, there's a whole actual cinematic cut scene after when you make a Worgen, you don't start out as a Worgen, you start as a human, and then an event happens early on in the story where you get bitten and you turn into one and unlock your Worgen form. And there's a whole thing where he's coming up to you in a cage and he's like, Do you remember what happened? Is there even a shred of humanity left within you? They've kept you alive because they think you can be saved, but I think you should be put down like the beast you are. It's like that's kind of your like that's who this guy is.
Yeah.
Grumpy.
Yeah, I mean you can see where he's coming from. Uh but so then he has a whole thing. He's like, he really hates the Worgen stuff. But even after the whole thing where the Worgen meets the Night Elves and they gain control over their abilities instead of being feral beasts, um, it turns out that Godfrey he's planning to betray the king because there's the Forsaken are invading. Remember, I said the Gilneans and Forsaken, they pretty much are mortal enemies. This is the thing. When the wall comes down, Sylvanas invades and ends up killing King Greymane's son. Actually, it's Prince Liam. That's why for his card back in the Witchwood, he's a ghost because Sylvanas killed him.
Right.
And there's they're trying to, they have to evacuate Gilneas and they're fighting the Forsaken, and Godfrey's like, what if we just give them the king, then they'll leave us alone, he thinks. And then eventually, this plan is thwarted, and Gen reveals that, hey, I'm actually a Worgen too. And then Godfrey is literally like, I would rather die than have a Worgen for a king, and he just commits suicide by jumping off a cliff. Like that's literally you watch it as a run animation off a cliff and then just falls. Then Sylvanas, through her Valkyr, raises him as an undead to serve her. And then he does a whole thing about capturing the daughter of Darius Crowley and threatening to turn her into a Forsaken in order to get the Worgen to back off, because now he's switched side. He's been raised as an undead. But after all of that, he shoots Sylvanas in the back. Like he just kills her by literally shooting her. She gets resurrected again because that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Her Valkyr just keep resurrecting her when she dies at this stage in the story. And so now he's betrayed both the Worgen and the Forsaken. Both of them are after him. And he goes and he takes over this old fortress called Shadowfang Keep. Yep, so he's the boss of that dungeon. Yep, and so depending on which faction you're playing as, if you're playing as Alliance and you do that dungeon, it's Worgen who are leading it because they want to get him. And if you're playing as Horde, it's Forsaken who are leading it because they want to get him. Like, he's trying to plot the downfall of both factions as his own little thing, growing his own little force, but like he's taken down within an early level dungeon fight. So he's not a long running villain throughout the whole like multiple expansions or anything, but he has an important role in both these stories, and Hearthstone has kind of really leaned into him because this is his second card appearance, and he's had a handful of hero skins as well for Warlock at this point, I think. He's not actually a warlock, as in someone who has warlock powers, but Hearthstone has decided to just kind of slot him into that class as, sometimes it's warlock characters, sometimes it's just we need someone a little more evil and give warlock class. Because
makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't always find characters of every single class who are actually that class for every theme that Hearthstone wants to do. So, I respect they have to bend the rules just a little bit here. Next, we're going to talk about Morag.
Can I say one thing before we talk about Morag?
Go ahead.
I mean, it's about Morag. Schmoopydady, I think you should disenchant this legendary.
Why's that?
He kind of looks like Meatball Patches.
I mean,
he's
not nearly as infuriating to me.
It's kind of the same thing. Okay, Goliath, go ahead.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because he is, in fact, the same species as Patches. He is a type of demon that is called an observer, which are similar to beholders or dark glares or other type of similar demons within this world. Um, Observers are an intelligent race of demons resembling floating eyeball squids, is the initial description in the Wowpedia. They are actually they're not originally demons, they're just native to the Great Dark Beyond. And they have the capability to see through forms of stealth and invisibility by looking through the twisting nether, which remember is kind of like a parallel dimension sort of role that it plays within the Warcraft fantasy. So basically, these are just like big space brown squiddy guys who just kind of float through space, and then were eventually just conscripted into the Legion, who kind of just like takes and corrupts every race that they possibly can here. Let's see. Other features, they have gills on their bodies, 10 tentacles. It says, oh, there is a sphincter on their backsides that can be seen contracting when observers fight and dilating when they die. I don't know why they felt the need to include that very specific bit of lore in
Interesting
there.
detail.
Yeah, but
I put that one in there.
Alternate card art.
You just turn around to see the back of more.
Wait for that signature.
You need to get the one. You need to get the knife.
Would you disenchant that one, Shruby?
That one. If I'm looking at Morag's sphincter, yes, I have to.
I mean, it kind of goes with your leaky butthole emote. So I don't know.
Listen, no. Mine was a little guy crying in spirit. This would be an actual purposeful rendition. Okay.
I legitimately just read that. You caught me learning that information for the first time as I was checking my sources here.
We learned it for the first time as well. Oh, amazing.
Those writers just do things for whatever reason. More relevantly, their eyes can shoot magic beams, different types of magic coming from different.
What does the flavor text say?
No.
So basically, they are WoW's version of beholders from Dungeons and Dragons. Is really what it all comes down to here. They are summonable by Warlock players. Because you have various demons that you can summon as your companions, and they can be one of them here. Lore-wise, it says that the ritual to summon an observer is complex. They are highly migratory, and the summoning ritual must compensate for their travels. Without their willing assistance, summoning an observer would be nearly impossible. During her journey to Outland, the undead warlock Jubeka Shadowbreaker learned from the observers the above-mentioned ritual and transcribed it into one of her grimoires, which then is something that you can then learn as a player. You grab that grimoire and presto, you can summon one of these. Now, regarding Morag in particular, again, not really a character with a bunch of lore, but this is one of the bosses from the original Violet Hole dungeon, the one where the blue dragons are trying to break in. There's just a little blurb from the Adventurer's Guide that says, Cyan Gosa, who is the blue dragon who's attacking right now, has enlisted Morag's help to annihilate Dalaran's renegade magi. This nightmarish demon once served the Burning Legion, eviscerating Sargeras' enemies with the baleful gaze of his 7 eyes. Now he will show Azeroth's heroes that one does not simply walk into the Violet Hold. We know what that's referencing, obviously. And that's all we know about this guy in particular, but, wanted to mention him because he is one of the few cards who is a boss from Warcraft who was turned into this. Our last one to talk about is Hogger from the Warrior Legendary here. Hogger is a character whose reputation outnumbers his appearances. Actually, you guys probably are familiar with Hogger, right? If you play, because he's been in Warcraft right from the beginning. If you've played any Warcraft at all, World of Warcraft, then you probably are familiar with him. Well, it's not so much that he has lore, but he became infamous in the community because he was very hard for people to beat. He is just a questing boss who's just roaming around the world. In Elwyn Forest. This is, as I mentioned previously, the starting zone for new human characters. Scaling wise, he was rather difficult for people to beat, and therefore gained this reputation among the player base as being a very, scary, powerful being that is very hard to take down. They kept on dying as players. Well, I mean, their characters did. The players didn't die, thankfully. But
This
this
time.
this resulted in Blizzard kind of elevating him just a little bit from being a, just NPC, just like any other quest NPC who dies. There's nothing else to him. But then they updated him in the Cataclysm expansion, where, again, many zones got a facelift and a little update of what's going on at this point in the story. And Hogger now has a scene where instead of dying, they made it where he gets arrested and taken to the Stormwind Stockades. He then serves as a boss in the Stormwind Stockade dungeon, which actually similarly to this Hearthstone expansion is themed around a prison break, and you have to go in and defeat all the escaping prisoners, which incidentally, aside from Hogger, are a fire elemental and just a guy who's a criminal, like just a human guy. It's like a gang leader or something. But Hawker is like the final boss of all of it. And he dies in that. And that really is the end of his story. He maybe technically pops up as a memory, or it's referenced, or a little thing in the Shadowlands, which is, where people go when they die. But really, it's again where he's probably technically bigger and has had a few more incarnations in Hearthstone than he has in Warcraft. It's the reputation and the memes that keep this character alive among the player base, just because of that history, not within Azeroth, but within the player experience for this game that's lasted for so long. And that brings us to the end of all of our cards to talk about. I'm excited to get to know some of the new characters and to really dig into these cards as they come out and see what they're like and how they work as cards. Because I've given myself relatively free for this one. I
Nice.
really just researched these guys and learned that they were cards when I was prepping for this episode. So, yeah, we'll see how this all turns out as a Hearthstone version.
Excited for you to experience these cards, playing them, especially since you got to open a bundle. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, we had a good time with the Theory Craft stream, being able to, showcase some of the stuff. Not everything is insanely powerful, but I think it's all a lot of fun.
A lot of ambitious designs, yeah. Like a lot of the ambitious designs and kind of like, oh, well, like what if we break this tendency that players always build around. I'm really excited to see when the full set drops how it ends up impacting Wild, because some of the cards are just so weird. It's like, well, how could this not be fun if
I'm
not good?
wondering what sort of crazy combos are going to come up, or what sort of things is this going to break where previous cards just aren't viable at all anymore because this new thing can just be slotted in that it completely throws that rule out the window.
I mean, like that's kind of what happened last expansion, right? Like, but the day before the last expansion, Treant Druid was one of the best decks in the format. Then all of a sudden, boom, you know, uh, Questline DH and Discard Warlock end up sort of pushing it out of existence now, where it doesn't even pop
Yeah.
up anymore. I can't even really suggest it as like a good budget meta deck because it's just completely pushed out. So I don't know. Something happens. Something always happens. It doesn't. We don't
Yeah.
get. We don't get like damn squibs anymore.
Anyways, Goliath, thank you so much. We always appreciate all the effort that you put into this, and it's great that we've been able to do this for expansion launch, so people kind of know what they're playing with, which is really cool. Sometimes we do it partway through the expansion and whatnot, and yeah, like once again, thank you.
Unrelated Advice with Hydralisk.
Hydralisk.
Schmoopydady.
At first, my unrelated advice question was going to be asking you how to survive jumping off a cliff into a cloud of mist, and how that actually process allows you to survive. However, I'm going to let you off the hook out for
Thank
that one.
goodness. I don't know how that would work.
I'm going to let you off the hook for that one. All right. And instead, I'm just going to ask you, how do I break out of prison?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm in prison, right?
Do you know who?
Lore. So imagine I'm in the prison. How do I get out?
So my first thought was to do it the way that the guy in Harry Potter did, because I recently read about that. But let's not do that. How about, do you know who Rita Hayworth is?
The name is familiar, but no face comes to mind.
There's a book called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Now, I'm sure you've seen the movie called Shawshank
Indeed.
Redemption, right? So I honestly think slow and steady wins the race, right? So like in the movie, it's the poster on the wall, right? So like you get a spoon, you get a toothbrush, you get whatever it is, and you don't rush things. Like this is something that you're going to work at over time, right? Like they're going to suspect you if you're going to try to pull the wool over their eyes like overnight, some big escape, some big plans, some, there's usually like a distraction, like, okay, we're going to pay a few guys to, like cause a ruckus in the cafeteria. Then we're going to run for the fences. You're just going to get shot. Like that's, you're looking for trouble. It's never going to work. The distraction isn't going to work. I swear, I think cops and security guards and stuff, they probably take distraction training. Like they know, like if someone blows up a bank, there's like another robbery on the other side of town. You know what I mean? Right? Like,
Okay.
like there's two things happening at once. So I really think it's you lie low and you do it slow, and it's going to take some time, but that's the only way to do it without being noticed.
Wiser words have never been spoken. You heard that on.
More to be wild.
All right, Goliath. Now, how am I breaking out of prison for real?
Okay, so disclaimer. The main context that I have for any of this is a podcast I listen to literally called Ridiculous Crimes.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
This is so I'm mainly exposed to the over the top stuff. I'm partial to I have friends on the outside who literally come and land a chopper in the prison yard, and I get in and just let me out type of strategy.
All right.
Now that's really obvious.
Yeah, so we have completely contradicting advice right here. I've actually never seen Shawshank Redemption, so I don't have that exposure.
Oh.